I've been looking more into this Flight 370 case. There's there's this is going to be very difficult to try to explain what's really going on here. And this is a theory that appears to have the most credibility in my mind. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. And this is going to explain why the Americans are not saying anything. This story includes the theft of highly technical information devices. We're talking about tons, 6 giant crates of devices that were loaded onto Flight 370. This is part of a transaction that was taking place between the Taliban and China. And this is what it has to do with right here. Let me see if I can click on. This is what it has to do with right here. The drone operation that's going on in the Middle East over there. That's killing a lot of people. Well, the technology behind this drone activity is about to be neutralized. At least it was about to be neutralized. There was a theft. You see this story here where these SEALs are found dead. These people, former U.S. Navy SEALs, these people were in charge of security over the transport of this technology that I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly what all that means. Well, the Taliban they killed the people and stole the cargo. And then so the Taliban, I mean, these guys aren't very smart. They know that they have something big and they are looking for money. You know, who's going to buy it? Well, China is the one that they got on the line, and they were trying to make transport, but China could not take the cargo directly. So this stuff was sent to Malaysia, and then in Malaysia they decided to use a commercial jetliner, but it had to fit certain criteria. Now the thing about the 777 family of jetliners is that they have fly-by-wire technology. So the fly-by-wire technology, there's only like 6 cables in this jet. The rest of it is all put together with components, and that allows it to be flown, and not only flown by the pilots, but flown by remote control. That was instituted after 9/11. So the Americans that have the technology to break in and divert this plane, they are the ones that knew what was going on all along. So there's espionage involved, counterintelligence involved, the messages were intercepted, the Americans realized what was going on, and apparently 5 people, not just Americans but Israelis, were put on board this plane knowing that the cargo that they were looking for was on the plane. And this base right here, Diego Garcia, this is going, look at the position of it, look at where it is. This is going to play a key role. This is a gigantic facility that you don't hear a lot about, and there's a lot of shipping lanes. The trade lanes are over there that have to be monitored to protect U.S. interests. Well, this jet was already tagged. They knew about this cargo ahead of time. The Americans were all over this, and this is one of the reasons that I'm saying that the CIA's their fingerprints are all over this, because they knew that something was going on with this flight beforehand, and they have the satellites, they have the technical ability to even take over this plane. They knew exactly where it was all the time. So what happens is apparently, now I haven't got all this put together yet, it's still coming together, but this plane was taken over electronically, which is the reason that the transponders turned off. These 5 people on the inside took control of the plane. Now, it's not like everybody was killed right here. That's not the way that it happened. Everything was controlled electronically. and this plane was diverted to the airfield. And according to one story, it was sent to a third airfield and sent over to this airfield. And I don't know quite understand exactly what the truth is here, but the we need to know more about this facility and its location, the strategic location, because this is the direction that this guy ends up flying in, right? Pakistan does have a role in this because Pakistan is the place where the drones are being used currently, not just in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, but this is the key place on the map where this story gains traction. It has to do with the drone program. When you put drone components inside the airplane, inside Flight 370, and you realize that the Americans are trying to get their cargo back. That's what this is about. And the Americans do not want the Chinese or the Russians to know of their capabilities. That's the reason that they can't step up to the plate and say, we knew this, we knew. They can't do that. So the B team, the Malaysians, the Vietnamese, they're being allowed to carry this ball onward and drop the ball and everything. And the Americans aren't saying anything because China is the one that's trying to get a hold of the technology that's going to neutralize the drone program for their partners that are in the Middle East. Now, and this ties in with Russia. This ties in with Putin and the power vacuum that's being created by the Americans. The Americans are the problem. They have destroyed the power structure in Iraq, and they're trying to do the same thing in Iran and Syria right now. They've already done that in Libya, in Afghanistan, so that all these inferior chickens in the chicken house are now fluffing up their feathers, and they're ready to start taking power to fill the power vacuum. So that's the key in listening to Putin, the power vacuum. He realizes that it's there. So he installed a puppet in Ukraine, and then the puppet was rejected. Well, that created more of a power vacuum for the Russians with all these gas and oil lines running through the Ukraine. So Russia is actually doing the right thing in my view and trying to fill that vacuum. But this other story, this 370 story, Flight 370, this is connected too, because part of the way that the power vacuum is being created is through this drone program, and that's what is China and Russia should be in there helping too, to neutralize what's happening here. So they're trying to get restore order to their region that is being changed by the Americans. So the Americans are the problem that's creating the need for the Russians to take over more and more of their land. It looks like this is all preconceived by Putin, but actually Putin is reacting to what's happening. And now Putin must take over as much of this land in this power vacuum as possible before the CIA puts their people in place and begins running things from behind the scenes. That this is a bigger threat to Russia than installing missiles in Turkey or anything like that. So I believe Putin's on the right page. He has an opportunity not only to attack NATO, I'm not talking with missiles, but by Europe that depends on all this energy. Putin has the ability, especially if he could join with China, then he could build a NATO-like alliance and bring in the Germans and bring in the Iranians and continue. He can have himself a G10 of nations that stands against NATO, including current NATO members, if he would do the right thing right now at the right time. He needs to attack the Americans by discrediting the Obama administration that's running this drone program, by providing the evidence, just like Sheriff Arpaio did from Arizona, prove that Obama is an immigrant from Indonesia, that he was born in Kenya, prove that he has an illegitimate administration, and then that explains why Obama is weakening the military, why Obama is taking a step back, worrying about Manhattan rather than the interest in the Middle East. So Putin is really sitting in a position of the most power right now, even though some say that his economy is wanting to crumble and this and that. I don't see any of that. What I see is Putin standing in a position of strength, and if he can stand on the border and get the people to vote to join his alliance, join Russia, Mother Russia, the more power to him, in my view, because that is just more proof that the power vacuum truly exists. And these people that are forced in the center, they're going to have to choose strength, the regional power, if you want to call them that, of Russia, because Crimea doesn't have to worry about being taken over again by anyone, because now they're Russian. Who's going to go up against the Russians and take Crimea? Nobody's going to. But anybody could come along and take Crimea as long as Russia stood back and behaved like the Americans are behaving right now. So anyway, this facility right here, I'm not saying that the jetliner is at this facility, this naval support facility. What I'm saying is that the payload, the 20 tons of payload was removed, and then the jetliner was refueled, and it was sent out into the ocean to be destroyed with all the evidence. So the Americans do not want this jetliner to be found, just in case there's fingerprints, just in case that somebody's smart enough to put together what happened. Okay, so a message to the Russians and the Chinese and the people that are really wanting to find this jet. The thing that you're going to do is you're going to follow the Americans, because now they've sent their most sophisticated detection ships into the region. Now, what these guys already know where the plane is. They are going to send their best ship to the exact location of where the jet is, and then they're going to label this area as already searched. And then they're going to continue to go in wider circles, and they're going to declare this entire area searched so that nobody else searches there. That's what the Americans are going to do. So go back and retrace the steps of the Navy, the U.S. Navy that already knows where the ship is, and look at their movement. When they're steaming forward, then they stop, and they begin declaring. My view is that the first area that they declare searched is going to be the place where their jetliner is on the bottom down there, even though that plane could have landed in 2 other landing strips before it got there. You see what I mean? So the evidence, you could still find debris. You could still find the jet down there off the coast of Australia, but that doesn't mean that it flew there originally. That's where the evidence is being destroyed. And this is supposed to be a jetliner that's never found. So this area was deliberately chosen because of the difficulty of being able to track everything down. So that's what I've said from the beginning, is that the Americans know far too much, and they're not saying anything. They're definitely involved, and it has to do with this drone program. When you connect all the dots, and I'm just putting this together this morning. Maybe I should have done this a week or 2 from now, but I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve on what's coming out in the news media. So something along this line is what's going to be the truth, whether this jetliner is in Pakistan, or whether this jetliner is out there in the ocean or on this naval base. It has to do with that payload, and the Americans do not want the Chinese to get a hold of their technology, which is going to affect the drone program, not only in the Middle East, but also here in the United States. So once the world has access to this technology, then the drone program is going to be set on its heels, for some time before they can revamp everything and for redeployment. So that's my take on it right now. And that's how the dots connect together again, that all this is connected to the drone program, that the Americans that know a lot more than what they're saying are not saying anything because they do not want the truth to come out, that they actually put people on board ahead of time, that they knew all of this. As soon as they do that, then they have to explain a lot of things and reveal eventually the right line of questioning is going to reveal the current technology that the Americans have, which is the ability to read a postage stamp from out in space. But they don't want you to know that. That's why you're seeing all these grainy images and, oh, we don't know. They're waving their arms around, like they don't know, because they do not want you to know what their capabilities are. Not the Chinese, not the Russians, and especially not the American people. Because if you realize the advancements in artificial intelligence and the technologies, the lettered agencies, the military, then the NSA thing, with them looking at our emails is going to be nothing. So that's my report, and I'll see you guys next time.
When the sun goes